Please welcome our favorite speaker, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Turn the person next to you and tell them how your energy is today. Let's begin. Now today, we have to summit. Today we have to reach the summit, top of the mountain. We have climbed out of lower energy centers in your body. You're beginning to experience a lighter heart. You're beginning to feel a little freer. You're beginning to experience more possibilities. And by this afternoon, after lunch, we will have a meditation where we'll tie all of this together. So we're taking different pieces and parts of the meditation that you learned in your level 1 and very nicely just kind of reviewing some things so that you understand when you're doing it and when you're not. How many people understand that? As for an example, I know when I'm not present. I absolutely know when I'm not present, because when I'm working to be present and I have those moments of presence, everything else is not present. Do you understand? And so when I sit down and I do my meditation, I'm all over the place and I got to settle down. If it takes me 45 minutes to settle down to get into the present moment, then I know the difference between when I'm present and when I'm not the rest of the day. How many people understand? And I decide in a moment if that person or that experience or that thing is worth me losing my presence. Because if I can sustain my presence primarily through the entire day, guess how tomorrow is when I work on being present? A little easier, wouldn't you agree? But if you're experiencing the incoherence of your external world and you're emotionally reacting to it, and then you're speaking words to reaffirm that reaction and blaming and complaining and excusing yourself, then are you knocking your brain and body further out of balance? So the next day in moving into your level of presence is going to be you having to overcome some aspect of yourself. Yes? And it occurred to me one day that I had been working every morning to find the present moment, and then I'd go out into my life and somehow be knocked out of balance to do it all over again. Finally I said, why would I want to do that? So this is all for you to understand that meditation, moving into this state, is not just to be spiritual. It's not to please God. It's not to do the right thing. That's not what this is about. This is making room to remove the layers, the dross, the habits, the emotions that's blocking the flow of the miracle of you. That intelligence that's giving you life wants to consume you. It wants to bleed through and move into you and move all around you. And when it begins to permeate your being, you become more like it. You become more giving. That's its mind. You become more conscious. That's its mind. It's a consciousness. It has awareness. It has presence. You become more willful. That's its mind. It's giving you life. You become more loving. That's what does it. It's a loving intelligence, intelligent love. That's what it is. So all of this is to break through, crack the egg, and give birth to something, so that when you get up from your meditation, you're altered in some way. But not altered in some way from a psychological model. Altered in some way where you are biologically changed, chemically changed, neurologically changed, epigenetically changed. And in the beginning, it's for you because your subjective mind will notice a difference. You'll feel differently. And if you hit that sweet spot of the present moment, and I saw some of you do it yesterday beautifully, when that happens and you notice things going on in and around you, that experience turns into a mood, turns into a temperament, and ultimately becomes a new personality trait. How many people are with me? Yes. So I always say to my daughter, you can't get up as the same person who sat down. And she always says, no problem. And this isn't fake it till you make it. This is gaining information and knowledge and piecing it together for yourself to be autonomous, to be sovereign, to be self-sufficient, so that you are the complete package and you're not putting your power into something outside of you. The power is within you. The miracle is you. And you take time out of your busy life to sit down and emulate the divine, to become a creator instead of a reactor, to react to reproduce the same level of mind as the conditions in your life. You think Martin Luther King was about that? He worked himself up into a state of justice. He didn't care about his body. Sure, he was afraid, but did it stop him? Sure, he was uncomfortable. Did it stop him? I'm certain he had doubts. And he continued on anyway, and he changed the course of a country. So you're going to be a little uncomfortable when you take time out of your life to love yourself enough to be a work in progress and remove those weeds in the garden that are thoughts that you didn't attend to, and begin to look at the plants that grew from the last year that are still sitting in your garden. They're done. Get rid of them. And the rocks that sifted to the top that are those emotional blocks, throw them out. Get them out of the way. They're not loving to you. And soften the soil. Tenderize it. Cultivate it. Break it down. Fertilize it. That's your mind. And then plant the garden of your greatest ideal, your greatest expression, and watch the weeds as they start to come up. And if you forget and you go back to your past and you become too distracted or too busy or too emotional, those weeds are going to grow back in your garden. And they're going to choke out the plants. And then that season's going to be over. And you're going to have to start all over again pulling those weeds out. How many people understand? So I can't let you leave today. By the way, don't you leave yet in your mind. The whole day here. I can't let you leave without having the inspiration to be the person you've been waiting for. We are the people we're waiting for. We are this concept of rebirth or a greater consciousness. And so you took time out of your busy lives to be here today and this weekend, to believe in thought. What an outrageous idea, to believe in thought more than anything else. That's what you're really saying. And when you trade that concept for something else, you've traded it for emotion. You've traded it for those chemicals of stress, to knock you out of balance so that you can be part of a culture that's living that way in fear and control and greed and deception. All of this is to tell you, if you don't like greed that's going on in the world, start giving. You don't like the war, you better not be warring with your neighbor or your coworker. Find it in you to remove it and be an example so that you can lead by example and everybody else can as well. And when I talk about a greater ideal of yourself, if you're not consuming knowledge and making the time to begin to think about what greatness is for yourself, it could be a great mother. It could be a great boss. You know, it could be a great worker. It could be a great janitor. It doesn't matter, but you're going to demonstrate greatness in every area of your life. And when you come up against the roadblocks, which we all do, if you're not asking yourself, what piece of knowledge, what do I know that I could apply to this situation? How could I change my mind to meet the adversity in my life? And begin to apply that to have a new experience. If you're not doing that, you're meeting your reality with the same mind. And I don't care if you miss your meditation a day, here a day. What I care about is that you miss it and then you feel guilty or distracted or less than or unworthy. And then you don't continue on. And then you see me 6 months later and you say, my life's falling apart. This is going on. And I say, are you doing the work? No. That's why I don't do conferences anymore. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in dinner conversation. I'm interested in being with people that want to put the rubber to the road. I care that you fall like that kid in the race. Get up and you go. Failure was not on her mind in that moment. That was not something that she was willing to embrace. She could have been defined by that experience. And she chose to be defined by it in another way. And you know what? All of you secretly believe in your greatness. You all do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But you know what? This is what I know from experience. This is the comfort zone right here. And then here's where miracles happen. And until you're willing to step out into that, outside of that comfort zone, you know what comfort zone is about? It's about the familiar you. It's about that chemical continuity that you've kept going for a period of time. And the moment you start feeling uncertain or unknown, or you step out of the familiar and you can't predict the next moment, what do people do? Human nature is they return back to the familiar, and at least their problems and their past and their pain is something that they can predict. What kind of life is that? I mean, do you want to live that way? Dare to be original? Dare to have an idea, a thought? Like, geez, maybe I can turn plastic into oil. It's made of oil. But he did something about it. He did something about it. And when you have everything in your life, you know, money or freedom or whatever it is that people want, the only thing you're going to want after you have all of that is, how am I going to contribute? How am I going to make a difference? How am I going to change the course of the world in some way? Leave a footprint for someone else to step in and at least build on. So what's the hardest part of all of this? Making the time to do it. And when you wake up in the morning and your body has been conditioned to a new mind for a period of time, and there's people in this audience that do it, their body gets them up out of bed. They get up before the alarm clock. They're not going, oh, geez, I gotta breathe. He's a slave driver. Oh, my God. Oh, and now here comes the space that the nose is in space. And why is he saying space? You think I don't see that? You can critique me all you want. I'm so free.